What if seeking isn't about finding answers, but growing into the silence they leave behind? At some point, the questions fall away, and what's left is the light we've been trying to name. This is Seekers and Finders. Some conversations don't just inform, they awaken something ancient within us. Today we're joined by Emmy Award winning director turned spiritual author Mary Madeiras, whose new book, The Akashic Way, Living Through the Lens of the Akashic Records, offers not a theory, but a lived experience of the soul's memory in motion. Mary's journey from Hollywood's bright lights to the infinite light of the Akashic Realm is as surprising as it is profound. In this dialogue, we'll explore what it means to live through that lens, how trauma transforms into wisdom, and how love, real divine love, reveals itself at the center of everything. So, wherever you are, take a breath, soften the mind, and listen with your heart, because this one is meant to be felt. Welcome, Mary Madeiras. This is a great pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you.
We've been looking forward to this, and your topic, the Akashic Records, is just a wonderful topic to talk about. So let's start by you giving us your background, and then we'll move into talk about your book.
Okay, sure. So my background is, career background, I'll say. But I'm from the New York area, originally born in New York City. But I grew up, I actually grew up in a Catholic family, which in no time I tossed out. But it was an interesting experience because it relates to exactly to how and why I work in the Akashic Records. But my career went into, I majored in music in college, and then I came out, went back to the city and to New York City, and was working I was working at CBS News, WCBS News first in New York, the number one local market, right? Jim Jensen, Rollin Smith, you guys may remember. Rollin's a dear friend of mine, and he's still writing. But anyway, so local news, and then I was always feeling like I wanted to be in drama, work in drama. So I came up, and then I became a director at CBS News on the morning news shows, the ones with like Diane Sawyer, Bill Curtis, all those guys, and then and Lester Holt and Meredith Vieira, who was really fun. And so after I was like in news for years, I think it was like 10 years I was there, I set my sights on wanting to get on a daytime drama. And so I did. And it was via sports. I worked on the Olympics in Korea with NBC and met a woman who was an assistant director, and she was working for she was about to leave a soap opera, which was called Another World in Brooklyn. And so she hooked me up with the producer. I had an interview when I got back from Korea. Boom, I went in as an assistant director, and I was there for 11 years until it went off the air. And that was working in Brooklyn, in Midwood, Brooklyn. And so that was where I got my first Emmy Award. I moved up to be contract director there. Then from there, it was just soaps. I went over to the West Coast, worked on General Hospital as a contract director there. I worked on Days of Our Lives. And then I was going back to New York to fill in for all my children. As the World Turns, I think it was 7 soaps that I worked on. So during that time, I mean, it was really fun, and I felt wonderful. Who wouldn't be happy having that career? So it's not that I was unhappy, but I just felt like I was seeking during that time. So I was always looking for roaming around those bookstores, Gary, that you referred to. I would go in and out of bookstores when I wasn't working in New York City on my own. I would just walk around New York. Anything metaphysical, I was attracted to, especially UFOs. And then I had throughout the 80s, I had a slew of very serious experiences that I didn't feel comfortable talking to anyone about. And it was me being pulled through walls at night. They were abduction experiences. And no one talked about that. And so, especially because the people I worked with were left brain thinkers, they were news people or they were in soap operas, but they were studio people. They were not, people weren't discussing this. So, what saved my life that time, because I was starting to freak out about what was happening. And what saved my life was a bookstore. And it was either the Mystical Eye, it was in Chelsea. And it was one of those metaphysical bookstores. And there was a book in there written by Dr. John Mack called Abduction. He's now on the other side. And it saved my life because he was a psychiatrist at Harvard, I think. And he had all these clients coming in with the same experiences. And he wasn't even a believer in this, but he knew he had to look at it that something was happening. So that was a whole chunk in the 80s of time for me dealing with that. At the same time, I was always searching, and then I found Abraham Hicks. That was my first, like, that tipped me. And I would go to the Abraham workshops in New York, a lot of them, when the rooms weren't even that full. And then when I got to the West Coast, I went to them out there. Um, used to hang out with Jerry and Esther when Jerry was live. So that really opened my world. And then I was in a psychic reading, and and the reader saw a being over my shoulder, and she said, "There's this dude over your shoulder." This was in Southern California, of course. The dude's over your shoulder, and I said, "Who is he?" And she said, he looks like a genie, and he says he translates sacred geometry into ideas that he feeds to you, and he oversees and protects your Akashic records. And I asked her, well, what are those? And she said, I don't know, but that's what he's saying. So I went home, looked it up on the internet, again, started like looking around, books, books, books. And there was a metaphysical bookstore out in LA, the Bodhi Tree. You guys may have heard of it.
I've been there.
Yeah, I went there constantly. See, I was always seeking or being, I really want to say now, I think we're drawn to it. I don't think we're trying to find it. I think we are drawn to that aspect of ourselves that's already there. And so it was in the Bodhi tree that there was a book sticking up off a shelf that brought my attention up to it. It was sticking out like it was going to fall. And I looked up and it was called How to Read Your Akashic Records. And I pulled it down and I went like, I was alone in the back room and I was in the UFO room, more UFO stuff, which is interesting. And so I said out loud, okay, I'm all right. Right, all right, let me go. And I read the book so quickly. And that's the author of that book, Linda Howe, is who I wound up studying with. She has a Center for Akashic Studies outside of Chicago. Because her journey, there was so much that I just resonated with. It was like, I know this. And within that book, she has you opening your records. And when I would first open the records using a sacred prayer that she was downloaded, I'll say, I began to hear blocks of thought that were not mine. I knew they were not mine. So that's how it started.
Well, you've answered two of my opening questions, but now I not to go off track here, but I really must ask you, your alien abductions that you had, were they OBEs, out of body experiences, or did you uh, were you awake and felt your body? I mean, people talk about out of body experiences, astral travel. I guess
Yeah.
we have it in dream world, but how did you experience that?
Well, it was, there were many, by the way, and they were in various locations. I even had one in Ireland when I went back to Ireland, where my mother was from, with her. And I would have missing time with sometimes, often with other people. And the way that I experienced it was, I'm not gonna say it was traumatic, but it was dramatic. I would be sleeping and then it was almost like I would wake before I was taken. I would wake and I'd feel like I was being yanked backwards through the wall. Then I wouldn't remember anything. And then I would remember just becoming conscious again in the bed. And usually I'd be like screaming or yelling or something, trying to wake up. Those were the experiences. And when I found a psychiatrist or psychologist in New York because I knew I needed something. And, she was trying to jam it into Gestalt therapy and, uh, you know, um, Freudian. And I remembered saying to her, I'm telling you, I know my dreams. I don't have nightmares. I don't sleepwalk. Something is happening. And she just couldn't go there. So I dropped her and, went to books. Yeah, that's how so that was my experience. And I was encouraged throughout the years to do hypnotherapy, but honestly, I kept feeling and hearing this like you don't need to, don't worry. I didn't want to I didn't want to see the beings. I don't feel they were negative. I feel they were benevolent, and I've come to realize deep down inside that I probably okay, this is kooky, but I think I'm a hybrid and I resonate with the Arcturians.
Well, we've had many people on this podcast who feel different than the norm. They've
Yeah.
had these extraordinary experiences, and to them, they're real. They're not,
Hmm.
imaginary things happening to them. They've actually experienced these phenomena. So for you to tell us this, and I can't speak for Gary, but personally, I've had my own extraordinary out of body experiences, not alien based, but just astral travel and such. So I
Great.
can identify with it. But others listening to the podcast find these fantastic and possibly fantasy. So with that said, let's move on to the book. Okay. So when people
Okay.
hear Akashic Records, they often imagine a celestial library, but you describe it as a living, breathing energy field. How would you explain what it feels like to step into that space?
Mm-hmm. Great question. So it's a subtle shift and it's like a heightened sense of knowing. That's it. And it sounds almost too easy, but when we're talking about divine, it is easy. Divine is all about easy. And the number of times that the word love is used in my book from the Akashic Records, I almost was going to, I said to the editor, I don't know, maybe this is too much, but that's what they gave. It's love. It's all about love. It really is. And love is an overused word, right? But the feeling when I open the records, the prayer raises the prayer that I use to access anyone's records, including my own. It puts me in a higher state of hearing. That's the best way I can describe it. And part of why that happens is because I believe in the power of divine and source, creator, whatever we want to call it. I know it. I don't even believe it. I know it. And so because I know that, I know its beauty, I know its essence, I recognize its essence through the hearts of people, through the hearts of ideas, throughout my whole life. And I was shut off from it a little bit growing up, as we all have gone through all kinds of garbage where I didn't recognize it. And when I started to come closer to discovering this and then it was home. I already knew this. So when I open the records, I don't feel dizzy. I don't go into some state. I mean, Edgar Casey did, the sleeping prophet, right? But I just know I'm there. And as soon as I know I'm there, that's where I begin to hear blocks of thought that are not mine for the client. It just like, it's seamless. Just happens.
So it's not a visual space that you travel into necessarily.
No.
It's a space within yourself that you're present in
Yes.
from an auditory state, we'll say, because you're actually uh, okay. Love to me was the key word here, and So I guess so your book begins with the powerful line, quote, the paradigm shifting messages from the records reveal a future with no duality, no judgment, no death, only love.
Yeah.
That really got me. How did you come to trust that vision?
Because when I heard it, when I was in the records and heard that, I knew it. You just know it when we're it, you know, it when we're unhappy or we're off, we feel off, and we don't know what the solution is. 100% of the time, what's going to make us feel better. When we come closer to what we know is going to be making us feel better, we just know it, don't we? It's like just stepping into something and going, I know this. And I mean, there are a couple of mind bending ideas in this book that have come through, but they're ancient ideas and they're ancient. They're not new and they're not about some future that we've never lived before. It always comes back to every human being, every living being a mirror of and exactly the same as source. It's not a bearded man in the clouds, which is what I grew up with. So, paradigm shifting, it's paradigm shifting because the paradigm right now is kind of a little bit wonky, isn't it? And so once we realize, is love really it? Yes. You were talking, Gary, you were talking about the 60s. You guys were both talking about the 60s. And that was, and I was born in Greenwich Village. So Greenwich Village was like, whoa, right? And I was so attracted to what was going on, but I was too young to get involved in it. But I knew that something really special was happening. So that's what, this paradigm shifting, what were the words? Because I don't remember the words from the reading.
The paradigm shifting messages from the records reveal a future with no duality, no
Yes,
judgment, no death, only love.
that's right. No duality, and duality is a concept that's throughout everything. I mean, it's so grounded in human life right now, and has been. So I was like when I and to say I was shown it is I my vision is the visions that I'm given are not like watching a movie. They don't come through that way. It's a different kind of seeing. It's like it's seeing something in a knowing way, that kind of seeing. And when I see it and I go, whoa, whoa, that's how I know this is very important. I don't go, whoa, like I don't get it. My mind, when I'm in the records, my ego, part of my prayer is my ego is sitting on a couch in the corner. It's not there. I once tried to, there was a person having a very difficult session for them, and I tried to have judgment. I tried to force a judgment in the reading in my mind. I couldn't. It was the trippiest thing. I couldn't get a judgment. That's how I know I'm in that realm. Because in that realm, there is no duality. There is no darkness. There's only light. It's they refer to it as the all that isness of everything. And I imagine it's similar to what Dr. Joe Dispenza talks about with the field of possibilities. And I've done those meditations and gone there, and it's like a blank slate where everything exists, and it feels good. That's the other thing. It just feels good.
So I'm wondering if you have a heart experience during this time, because you talk about love, and
Hmm.
I've within the last couple of years, I've had a transition in my life where the shift from personal love, love between two people, has shifted into an expanded heart center where I'm feeling an unconditional state of love for anything that is overwhelmingly powerful, or people that are making great achievements, doing wonderful things with life, all of that. My experience is when I'm seeing them, I have this expansion in my heart, and it's really a feeling of unconditional love.
Hmm.
Is there any kind of experience that you're having during your sessions where this is happening? It may not have anything to do with it, but I just, when you talk about love, there is definitely a difference between the love in a relationship and the divine love or the transcendental love that we're all supposed to be a part of.
Stefan, I'm so glad you brought that up. No one's ever talked about that with me. Um, when I was studying with Linda Howe, we would be opening our own records and working with each other and writing. She said to the classes, she said, when you're working with people, if you don't fall in love with them, you have not been in their Akashic records. And it is, and I've shared this with some clients because it's a growing for me in these readings. I don't know anyone that I do readings for beforehand. It's like us meeting for the first time here. And as we're talking, the divine is moving through the spoken word. And as the reading continues, as our time spent together continues, there's this expansion that I feel. I can just feel it. And it's just, I grow to love that person more and more and more. And of course, I don't say it to them because they're in a different space and I don't want to be some weirdo, you know, Akashic Records reader who's like going around picking up people. No, it's, it's not, that's like the guru thing you were talking about. But um, no, I can feel it. And when we get to the end of a session, when the time is right, quite often I will share it with them, and I can tell the way that they talk to me before we leave each other that they don't want to leave. That's that love. It is not the person to person love. I totally agree with you. It's it's the same feeling I have when I see something in nature that just blows me away, and I can't even put words to it. And that's expansion. It's the expansion of more of it, and we're in it. And it's just so beautiful.
You know, when you said that, I just thought of this that I think that people can appreciate and actually have this transcendental love experience with their pets
Hmm.
because there's a deeper love for their pets, and it's a different kind of love than they have for, let's say, their partner. But there's such a deep love for their pet because that pet's life is totally dependent upon you.
And you know why
And
else? They're mirroring to us from source that unconditional love. So we're in it, and you can't not get some of that. I mean, I have pets. I've had pets my entire life, and they are beyond. They just amaze me, and I feel, especially cats, when I don't feel good. If one of my cats just lays on me, I receive. I just sit there. I will lay there going, "Oh my gosh, she's healing me. She's healing me." Because they do that. We underestimate their power. We really
so
do.
maybe pets are our best guru. And maybe if we
Yes,
just paid attention to the relationship,
I
it
think we
would
should.
raise, our consciousness to a better state. Okay. So, in your own readings, the records told you, quote, writing will not end you, it will begin you. How did that moment of surrender shape your creative life?
Well, I was working prior to that, as you know now, as in entertainment, in as a director, mostly as a director, not a producer, not a writer. And so now here I am. I'm beginning to work in the records, and I know I'm moving more fully into the records. And during one of my readings, that's what they said, that quote. And I argue with my records, which I think is so funny. I wrote back because I would sit at my computer and hear and ask and hear, and I wrote back, "No, I'm not a writer. I'm a director." And my records, and what I heard was, "Well, no, Mary, what's etched in your records, because it is that soul imprint of all of our lives. What's shown here is that you are a writer. Don't be afraid of it, kind of like just when you begin to write, they said, it will be so easy that you will not believe it. And we meaning the light energies that oversee my records, we will be with you every step of the way." So I stepped away from that, and I wasn't like fighting it, or I just was perplexed. I remember thinking like, I don't know, I don't get it. I don't get it. So I didn't fight it, but I also didn't run around looking for things to write. I just forgot about it. I feel like what it was I surrendered. And no sooner did I get into that space of like, well, whatever. I got a call to write a screenplay based on a book, an adaptation, and be paid to write a screenplay. And so and then I thought, well, I don't know how to do this. And I didn't, this is so good for people to hear. I didn't realize I did know how to do it. I was so focused on directing, right? And I was doing it and getting awards and all of that, that the writer in me wasn't being heard, I guess. And so I thought when it was a screenplay that got offered to me, I thought, I don't know the formula, the formats, whatever. And then I remembered that I had taken on the East and West Coast at least 4 times these screenwriting workshops with, he is really the guru of screenwriting, Robert McKee, internationally known guy, and no nonsense. He really teaches how to write A-list screenplays, not B movies. I had taken those classes not because I thought I was going to write. I took them to be a better director. I wasn't taking them for writing, but I really was taking them for writing, wasn't I? And I didn't know that. So I had his books and everything, and I just went to the books and I remembered all the formulas that I already knew, didn't know I knew. And that's it. So it began me. My world has opened up so much more. That's how I was able to write this book. Because I never saw myself as a writer, but my record showed me that I am one.
So that's what I found extremely interesting about your journey. And mine kind of, I was going to say this in my email to you, but mine kind of parallels yours. Um, I originally went to college for dramatic arts. I wanted to be an actor. And while I was in school, um, I did perform, but then I looked around and I saw uh, other people that were with me were in another level of creativity,
Mm-hmm.
performance wise. They really had it. It was natural. Mine always seemed to be um, because I had studied with a drama teacher before I went down to the university. I had training, so I was utilizing that training, but there was never any freedom beyond that. So I shifted my major to directing because I found that that was my space. These shifts that happen in your life, and I'm sure you've read through your records and know where it is truthful for you. Um, does it fall out that way just as destiny is supposed to happen? Is the Akashic record telling you that this is what your soul's journey is supposed to be like in this particular life?
Well, the what the records do is trigger a remembering. That's what this is all about, is remembering. So it's nothing, it's not new information. It is already in us. So when my record said, your records show you a writer, it was already there. I just didn't know it was. I didn't remember, right? That aspect of myself, I guess. And by remember, not remember that I had done it before, well, I may have done it in a past life, but that it was a part of me already. And so, what is so empowering about the records is that this happens with so many of my clients and myself included, is they show us like when there are sections of our life where we move through things like you were talking about, and I had it too. I studied music and I was a classical guitarist and I was being encouraged to go down and play at Avery Fisher Hall, and then it was called that, in New York. And the same thing, Stefan, as what you described. I remembered that the musicians around me in my world, in my groups, they were having an easier time with it. And I would have to practice like 8 hours, and they would practice 3 hours, and bam, they just had it. It was not like they were just better at it or whatever, or more, it was more a part of them. So I could look at that now and go, well, was that not part of me? And why did I choose music? Well, every aspect of our lives, everything we've done, whether we were a plumber when we were 20 years old and now we're a PhD writer or a Pulitzer Prize writer, every aspect of our life contains an energy to it, and it is absolutely a part of our soul's journey, our soul's chosen journey. And we get to look at it, and that's what I refer to when I say looking through the lens of the Akashic Records. When we run the memories of our lives through the lens of the Akashic Records, when we're in our records, the records will, through asking questions, the records ask people questions, and by them answering the questions, they remember parts of themselves, and they come more into alignment with why they're here, right? Why we're all here. And so I was going to ask you that when you started as an actor, people think acting is only, being on stage or being on a film or being in a series, or doing stand-up comedy. No, that's not all that act. So in the records would talk about the energy of acting, the energy of you relating to acting, and why you were drawn to it, and that passion about it at that time. And you will come to discover that the passion and something about acting still plays out, and you can actually access that and plug it right into whatever you're doing today. And it brings whatever you're doing today into a space of being more unique and even a greater you, if that makes sense. That's why this is a tool.
Okay, so, but some people come to Earth, they know exactly what they want to do at some point in their teenage life or early 20s. They have a talent in some way. They go, they do it. There's no shift. This is their path.
Mm-hmm.
Others come down, like myself. I fell into the acting thing in high school. And I mean, I was also into sports, but for some reason, I thought it would be interesting. It wasn't something that I definitely thought was going to be my path. And then, because of it, I ended up between my junior and senior year going to a summer stock camp
Mm-hmm.
in Bucks County, Pennsylvania. And that kind of set it off. I felt that this was now a new path for me that I was going to follow. And then from that, I studied with one of the teachers that was at the camp in New York City, and then went to college, and then the road. So, but it's
Right.
been like a skipping rock on a lake. It keeps skipping from one thing to the next. And
Right.
I'm still, and here's the thing. Where some people find their passion in one thing in life, I'm finding my passion in the undercurrent of spirituality,
Mm-hmm.
which is the first thing I think about when I wake up in the morning and the last thing before I lay my head on the bed. It's like this buzz that carries me through the
Mm-hmm.
day, and everything else is kind of just ornaments. So in my human design chart, there's a gate that says, I'm a jack of all trades, I'm a master of none. And it has been that way because I was always trying to meet perfection in anything I wanted to do along the way. And sure enough, it never got to that point. I wanted to be a great engineer, never happened. A great record producer, I got to a certain point, never happened. I kept being pushed off into another thing, another thing. And the only thing that's held on was the spiritual life.
Mm-hmm.
So, can you talk about how that affects human beings from the standpoint of their records, and what is it that really makes the records so um, real? I mean, how do we believe this stuff? You know, you're
Because
not
we
a
experience.
psychic, and you're not a
Yeah.
psychic. You're not a medium. You know, you're doing something else. So,
Yes.
open us up to all of this.
Yes. I'm actually channeling, though. I will use that word. It is a channeling because I'm not coming up with what's coming through. There's several things that were coming to me when you were speaking. One is that there is no such thing as perfection. We've been told that. And somehow I feel like, Gary, you know that. Because in hearing about Gary's life, and that was a wonderful interview that you both did. He went on and went, okay, and felt it in the moment, felt it in the moment, felt it in the moment. It's when we perceive it which our parents, a lot of our parents would go, you never settle down. You're always doing this. Now you're doing that. Now you're doing that. Or teachers would do that. But really, what it is it's moving through life, having experiences. And when we take the perceptions off of it and the judgments off of it, one of the constants of the records is there are three: judge not, fear not, resist not. Judge not. There's no judgment. So the idea that when you said you always wanted to be, there was some kind of a place where you thought if you got there, that was perfection. That's what the records show us. Dear ones, they say, that's what's tripping us up. That doesn't exist. It's not about that. It's about having the fullest experience in life as you're going through life. And that's really it. It's actually much simpler. There's no, so there's that. The other thing that is so beautiful is there are people who move through life like you're talking about, Stefan, like, here, then this and that. And Gary, you shared that too. That is, I'm going to offer this, that is a mastery because it takes courage to go in a moment, well, you know what, that's not working anymore. This will. This will. And then you become this sort of, look what you're doing right now. You're talking to all kinds of people, like myself, who have these different experiences or different things to offer others. So, by the way, that's part of acting. So, if we were to look at the energy of acting, every aspect of what we do in our lives plays into exactly where we are in the present, always, 100% of the time. And the records show me that. So, to say to someone, well, I can't, they might say, can you prove it? Can we prove God? Really? No, we cannot prove God, yet we believe it, right? And, we have air, it can be measured, but do we see it? No, but we believe it's there. So I think that I think we're in this place on the planet right now where the vibration of the planet itself, Greg Braden measures this, the magnetics are changing, the vibration is measurable. Now science is starting to say, oh yeah, there is a quantum field that we can measure. Thank God, right? And so now that that's happening, people are going, oh, there is some field. Okay, do we affect that field? They can prove yes. And that idea that the observer is what affects the field. So we're getting closer now to what the Akashic Records are. The other thing is this is ancient. The Akashic Records are not some new thing. They've been around since the beginning of time, and they've been called different things throughout the history of the world. They're referred to as the Book of Life in the Bible. Madame Blavatsky, what's his name? Rudolf Steiner was talking about a field that we imprint. It goes back, right? What happened was it was usually only holy people and mystics that were able to raise their vibration enough to be able to see and hear that field. And then what happened was ego stepped in, and Eckhart's collective ego. And once ego came in and became more rampant, which is where we are, and that's a whole other thing to talk about. There's a lot in the book about that. But once that happened, then we lost touch with the divine essence that we are. That we are love, we are all that is. We are all good all the time. We really are. And so we lost touch with that. The ego doesn't want us knowing that. So now we're returning, and what I hear is Gaia as an essence, a living essence, this planet. She is expanding no matter what we do to her. And expansion is happening whether we like it or not. It's happening. And that goes back to that old saying, the light always wins. With all those wonderful movies, right? About the light and the dark. The light always wins. The light does always win because what I hear is there only is light. And Abraham Hicks has a funny thing that they say, which is Abraham says, you don't walk into a room and turn on the dark switch. There is no such thing, right? It's lack of light. So that's it. I just wanted to sort of address Stefan a little bit about that moving through life and choosing different things, because many people judge themselves. And I have so many clients where that's happened, and they'll go, I don't know why I spent 20 years and I got that degree and now I'm over here doing this and blah blah blah. And then we look at what was going on when they got that degree, what was going on when we go back to the essence of what was going on. It always was involving passion in a moment, which is a good thing. But there are always elements and essence, well, maybe not essences, but there are parts of those lives, let's say the multiple careers that we've chosen, that if we are not judging them as something that didn't work, we can start to see that there are parts of those sections of our lives that are beautiful assets, and we can pull them, and it could be knowing how to do something that was only related to studying acting, right? And so we can pull that forward and go, wow, that, you know what, that works now.
So, I mean, that's beautiful, because it really brings me to my next question. You write that nothing is ever a mistake.
Right.
Ever, ever, ever. How does that truth hold up when someone's facing heartbreak, illness, or loss?
Because those are experiences, and they're usually a match in the moment to whatever is happening. There's another thing here, and that was what I mean, we can say I said it because I chose to put it in the book, but I remember them saying that nothing is ever a mistake. That's because there's no such thing as judgment. That is man created. So many of our concepts are man created, that are shoving us in corners in so many ways and taking us from seeing that we are light. So if somebody had an experience and it didn't feel, it was a bad experience, in their words, a bad experience, and they feel remorse about it. If we go back, and let's say it's in this lifetime, and somebody says, you know what, I killed someone and no one knew. I haven't had that yet. But it'll be interesting. The records are going to say, they're not going to go turn yourself in. That's not the records. The records are going to say, probably from my experience, I've been working since 2008 with this, is that they're going to say, let's look at what was going on. First of all, what was going on? Take us back. Not to the murder. They don't care about that. What was going on? And then what very often happens is what Bruce Lipton talks about, Dr. Lipton, is a subconscious pattern. And there could have been a horrible subconscious pattern that developed when that guy was 0 to 7 years old. He could have been, like, who knows what. He could have been raped. He could have been beaten up badly, whatever. And so he obviously was never loved. So he never experienced his own love. He didn't learn that he is love as a child. And so many children have had that. So now you go into life, and we know the subconscious now runs, 97% of our behavior. Science is now showing that. So that being said, now you look at where that person came, and then what the moment when they were thinking about the murder or whatever. So we would probably run the whole thing through that lens of their own records and come to an understanding. People are going to say, well, you're going to forgive the murderer. I'm going to say here right now, yeah, that's right.
Well, people are starting to do that. I mean, it's become more pronounced in our society, where people are forgiving those who have created heinous acts upon them.
Yes, it's restorative
we've
justice.
never had that. We've never had that before.
No,
I mean,
we haven't.
Something's happening to us where we're shifting a bit in our moral codes and understanding that forgiveness. I mean, if that's the case, that nothing's ever a mistake, then loving someone, even if they make a mistake, is probably what should happen. I mean, I can't see anything else except, and we get angry when people make mistakes. It's just our human nature. So, yes. Speaking of human nature, how does that, because we're doing something, we're not being guided by anything necessarily except our personalities if we're unconscious. I mean, if we're conscious spiritual beings, then there is that other self that sits inside, that when you do something or are about to do something, that instinct or that higher self inside of you said, maybe not. But there are those who just go through life unconscious of that and just do anything, come what may, the consequences, and don't really think about it. So, how does human nature act within the realm of the Akashic Records?
Mm. So, everything that we do as human beings, human nature may fall within this. I want to just take the words human nature and just like, let's just sit it over there for now. But everything that human beings do, no matter what it looks like, is part of their soul's chosen journey. I can give you an example, and they've shown this on 9/11 when the buildings came down. Um, every soul, actually, Abraham will probably say this too, but every soul, okay, did every soul choose to, like, oh, I'm going to get up and go in my office and get hit by a huge plane? No. But what happened on that day was one of the grandest designs of global love because of what happened. The world, entire world, came together. The entire world, no matter what political side anyone was on, all the creepy crawlers, everyone was focused on that one giant moment. And those souls, every one of them, 4,000, 6,000, however many it was, every one of those souls on some level chose to participate in that grandest design. So when someone is going through life and now it depends if they're feeling like a piece of crap while they're going through life and doing bad things, that's something else to talk about because they don't know that they're loved. And I wouldn't even use the word unconscious or conscious because we actually use those terms. We created those terms. Is just there's just human life, connection to divine. We are divine. It's actually a lot simpler, I think, since I've been working in the records, life is a lot simpler than we've made it. So if someone's going through life though and they're harming others, we could look at what is happening during those times when they are, in quotes, harming others. They are most likely participating in something larger because that their soul chose. Our souls don't choose. From what I've learned is our souls are not choosing before we incarnate. We're not going, I'm going to come in and be raped by my father. We choose, I am going to engage in the expansions of self-love, or I'm going to participate in a grand design of unity or love, whatever. There are, I call them overarching themes that have that I understand the soul chooses. And then within that, when we become human, we're playing that out. Somehow we're playing it out. It's just how it unravels. It's the way the soul works. So the soul's not choosing. We're free to choose the conditions and the situations and the experiences. But no matter what, the soul is here to play out what it chose before incarnating, is what I understand. They even say there's no such thing as karma. There are only experiences.
So, we should see that grief is a powerful experience for transmuting into a greater understanding. That grief isn't something that we should allow to hold us down. We should live through it and see what it brings to us, because that experience of 9/11 brought so much grief, not just to the people who were personally involved by having lost members in the World Trade Center, but generally as a global sense of grief for what went down. And so that movement kind of creates this transmutation that brings us to a more spiritual place, or a greater understanding of the divine. Is that something? I mean,
Well, I think it's
maybe.
part of that design. Yes, I think it's part of it. I also sense that we don't need the grief. We can skip right to compassion. And there were a lot of people around the planet that were in a state of compassion for the families, whatever, and not the grief. Because grief is very it's very personal, and it's actually very, even if it's grief over, people who died, it's hitting you personally. And so we have to look at that. Why? But having compassion is a much freer state to be in, and it also is the compassionate state is a bigger sieve. No, not a sieve that goes that way, but a bigger portal through which love can flow. Compassion. And
Okay.
grief is a little bit more like we don't need it really. And that's not, I mean, the records don't invalidate pain. They always say that. We're not invalidating trauma or pain that you all as human beings experience. But they also show us that have shown me this future planet where there will not be that.
Yes, but we'll go back to human nature again. My wife and I had an extreme experience of grief.
Hmm.
So we did transmute out of that state of grief into something more cosmic. Now,
Yes.
I don't know. I don't know if that was just necessarily because when we left the spiritual center, the guru center, we left the path, we got married, we had children, and our youngest passed. So the grief that was there for however long it did happen, and I can't remember now because there were so many things that happened during the grief in the way of compassion
Yeah.
towards us.
Yeah.
Now, what you're saying, it's really interesting because the grief served a purpose and the compassion served a purpose.
And the
If the
grief
grief
can,
ser- if the
yeah.
grief served a purpose for the compassion to come in, and then that compassion brought us to another place, then I understand that. But okay,
Yes, and the grief most likely it dissolved away the grief, the compassion rather.
yes. However, still with human nature, that feeling that we had at the moment sits like a seed inside our gut and can be remembered at any moment in time.
Of course.
And it happened in 1991, so many years uh, have passed, but it still sits there.
Let me ask you something. Did you come to look at having had it was a son,
Yes.
having had a past life with him?
Uh, that's very interesting. I had two experiences with that. We went to a spiritual grief counselor afterwards. She's a psychotherapist and she deals by, putting you into a hypnotic state and,
Hmm.
talking to you about it. And there was a relief there. And then I had a past life experience. A friend of ours is a past life therapist. And many years later, I went to her and had a past life done. But he never showed up in the past life.
The other thing too is I just an event like that. I mean, I don't mean to diminish it by calling it an event, but something that happens like that for you and your wife, it has a greater role. It always does. So I, I, I'm sensing, and I'm not even in your Akashic records, but I've been having this happen where I start to hear things before I'm even in the records. So, maybe I am, I don't know what I am, but that's what's happening. So right now, I'm getting a sense of you having a different kind of relationship with him. And has he come through?
Oh, many times.
Oh, okay. So you
Oh,
have an
yeah,
ongoing.
absolutely.
So see, I saw that you have an ongoing relationship. Now, I have a sense also that the relationship you have with him now could not have happened had he lived out a human life.
That's very possible. And the one thing that you've hit on, he was, I don't know, he could have been just on the spectrum slightly. He just was like a crazy man, okay? He was we lived in a small community in New Jersey.
Hmm.
And not to take away from our conversation, but I guess I'll tell this anyway.
No, well, it relates
Since
to this.
okay, so we lived in a lovely community in New Jersey, and we participated in all the things, basketball, football, baseball, all of that. And fortunately for us, where our house was, behind our house was all the baseball fields for
Mm-hmm.
all, the intramural sports and everything, and Little League Baseball. And he would be up on the field 4 years old, 5 years old. He was just short of his sixth birthday when he passed. And he was like a crazy man. He would be jumping off the bleachers. He was doing this, that, and the other thing. And everybody loved him. Everybody in the town loved this guy. When he passed away, the entire town came. There was a line outside the funeral home. And he left such an impression when he left. It
Mm-hmm.
was like indelible. It was embedded, and everybody would talk about him. And his legacy, his memory just continued on and on as long as we were many years continued through the town. Everybody talked about Taylor. Everybody knew Taylor. So yeah, I guess, and he
And
still
so,
comes through today. His power is just like very
well,
intense.
another thing too is when you described him like, like this, um, this world, the human experience, much too confining. He couldn't do as much. He's doing way more and probably has been already, not just with you guys, but with others. And so he like, and this happens with also like babies that come in, they're born and then they leave and people are like, what? They come in and there's this boom, this impact, and then they're leaving because they're destined or their soul is choosing to do much, much more, right? So that's what he sounds like.
Yeah, he
I
keeps
just got chills as I
he
was
yeah
saying
he
that.
keeps he keeps punching through the earth bubble to see us, you know.
I love
And
that.
we here's the other thing: we have these beautiful pictures because when this occurred, we were deep in our photography careers, both my wife and I. She took these incredible photographs of him, the year before he passed, which we have, and there's a sadness in his face
Oh.
that is so present, and it's because it seems as though he wanted to do more and he couldn't get to that place where there was that joy space yet.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the photographs, well, it could also be like he didn't want to have anything to do with the photographs at the time, like leave me alone
No,
already.
you would
Okay.
see it. You and your wife would see it because he was
Yeah,
part of you. Yeah.
right. So, I mean, I had this question for you. I mean, of course, it brings us back to a question uh, that this heartbreak, this illness or loss or everything, it's such a heavy um, energy
Mm-hmm.
that sits on the planet. And yet, above in this other quantum realm is this information that you're pulling out. But loss and grief, and it seems to have such a powerful working relationship inside the Akashic Records. I don't know if I'm, you know, um, saying it right. Maybe it's because what I'm feeling, but it's really carried through my life, and it has directed me to bigger, wider, more breathing room kind of space through this loss. So I don't know if there's anything you want to talk about there. I
Well,
guess you've
because
talked about it all, but
that's the role that it has. The other thing too is grief and loss is part of the human condition. It's not part of the divine. The divine is not about loss. There is no loss in divine. So, but we are this humanity, right? And we've landed here and we've come in. Oh, we've been put here, whatever. That's another conversation. But part of what we've chosen is this human experience. And part of that human experience is what you're describing. Everything, the one thing I can say is everything, including grief, loss, trauma, everything plays a very magnificent role in the unfolding of our soul's journey and why we're here. We're always, and the big why I once asked, and maybe it's in the book, I don't remember, but I asked, why are we here? Why do we choose to come? And the answer I got from Divine was you have all chosen to feed back into the expansion of Source itself. It sounds a little bit like selfish on Source's part, but it's to feed into the expansion. And that's true. If we could look through everything that happens on the planet and in people's lives, and in some way, look how your son impacted an entire town. Look how your life and your wife's life, if we were to look at your both of your lives through your own lenses of your records, you would probably remember, I'll say remember, rediscover some things that happened since he died that probably would not have happened. And especially the relationship since he passed that you've been both having with him and the work and whatever he's doing on the other side. So grief is like a maybe it's a tool. I don't even want to say tool, but it's part of the human condition. It's part of it. We can choose it. We don't have to choose it. But it's not something that floats around getting us. That's not what I get about grief or pain. We are actually, on some level, choosing it as a means to get, as you described, somewhere else.
So I'm going to move on, but I mean, our world right now is in great distress.
Yes.
And it seems as though the unconsciousness, and I don't want to use the word ignorance because that's
Judgmental.
just not the right word. Yeah, that's
Right.
the spiritual masters use the word ignorance, not to portray intellectual level, but just the denseness that human beings have and can't see through the veil of illusion.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
so there's a tremendous feeling all over the globe now. We thought we were coming out into the light, and all of a sudden, darkness is kind of like boom, brought a nice little shadow over this whole thing. We've got storms that are getting bigger, that are eventually, if they get, I mean, we had a house in Jamaica. Jamaica got destroyed
Oh
with this
no,
last
I'm so
storm.
sorry.
But we
Oh
saw
wow.
pictures that were sent to us from friends of ours down there, and it was just wiped out. So, and things like that are happening. But I didn't really mean to get off track to that thing. I want to get back on track for your book because that's why we're here. And I want people to
Oh, thank you.
really be empowered to go out and read this book because it's really fascinating. So, my next question is you often mention the masters, teachers,
Teachers and loved
and
ones.
loved ones. How do you recognize their distinct energies and how do they collaborate when guiding you or a client?
Hmm. So the masters are sort of the carrier of the messages. I'll just say that they're like the ones that really they maintain the sanctity of that soul's imprint. Okay, so that nothing's going to float in and try and change the imprint or do something. It can't. The masters are there. Again, these are energies. These are light energies. The teachers are energies that come in and out of our lives for things that we've chosen. So, for example, if we've chosen self love, or we've chosen to come in and I can't pick another one. We'll do self love to experience self love or spread the idea of self love. There'll be a teacher energy about self love that is present during that part of our life when we're in our records. And I'll talk about the differences in a second. So that's the teacher energy. The loved ones are those who have and one other thing, the masters and the teachers have never been in human form. The loved ones, however, have been human, and they're anyone that we have experienced love with, any kind, healthy love, all kinds of love in our lifetime, in this present lifetime. It could be teachers, it could be our family, whatever. It would be your son. So sometimes, all right, so sometimes there will be an energy. There'll be something that just comes in, and will be in a reading. I'm talking about the loved ones now. During a reading, we might be discussing something, and the energy is going a certain way, and then all of a sudden I get a different sense, almost like a personality. I get like, I'm hearing like, don't do that way, like whatever. Then I'll say it's feminine. Did you have a grandmother? Is she on the other side? I will just ask. And it's always true. They'll say, yep, my grandmother would say that, and blah, blah, blah. So then it'll be like, she's here. Now, they're not here to chit chat like a psychic reading, which is more one on one. They're here to hold the purpose of that session and that reading and what that person is seeking. So they add more clarity to it, and it makes that person feel loved, familiar, because it's a loved one and they're familiar with it, and it makes them feel more protected maybe during a reading. The teachers, it's just going to be, it'll be just an energy that keeps, it's just constant. So it'll be if a person is not experiencing self love, and a lot of the things that they're stuck in is because they're not loving themselves, there'll be continually, the records are not going to go, you have to love yourself, but it's hard to describe because it's the power of divine. They'll just wash over that reading with certain questions, and it's definitely the teacher energy. So, and then the masters really are less of the speakers of it. They're holding the sanctity of it, but it's mostly, I think, the teacher energy. They just feel different, and it'll sometimes just be a different. It's almost like hearing a different voice, right?
Mhm.
It'll be more emphatic or more sure, or it'll be more gentle, more pulled back, things like that.
More subtle.
More subtle, yeah. And it's always questions. The records are never going, we think you should do this. I wouldn't be in the records if that's what was coming through. So it's interesting. It's when we answer our own questions while in our own records that we come to our own clarity and our own ease about and around things.
So, are people asking when you're doing the reading for them? Are they asking questions about what you're reading about them, or are they
No,
being
what happens?
answered? Yeah, go
Mhm.
ahead.
So what happens is people, first of all, people are always drawn to their records. That's how it's worked for me. I have never run around. I mean, I have a book that I'm showing people because it'll help people be familiar with it, be familiar with the records. But I never marketed it because I used to say to friends of mine, I can't market the divine, and don't make me. I'm not doing it. And so I would start with friends, right? And then they would tell people, and they would tell people because of what would happen. Everybody who comes to the records to this day is coming because they might have heard me here with you guys and something clicked. That's not me or you. It's there's a match, right? It's something else drawing them to this world of themselves. So that's how it works. And then when they're usually the reason it clicks is because they're seeking clarity about something. The most common theme is I don't I feel stuck in my life. I'm not happy and I don't know what to do. That's the most common one. And then sometimes it's I can't get past failed I'm tired of the failed relationships. It could be that. And what always happens is they're brought back to remembering that they're really beautiful and whole and centered to begin with. It sounds very lofty to say that, but that is what happens. And then that creates inspired actions moving forward that they choose. And then sometimes they'll ask, well, I'm feeling like I should do this. Should I? It might be a question like that. And the records might ask another question. And then I will either get, if it's sort of like a no from the records or a that's not a great idea based on where we're going here, I get like a blank slate. Like I don't get anything. It's just like empty. And so that's how it's like, that's how I know maybe they are not really fully taking charge of their life and what they're going to do next. Because that's what the records want us to do. We are in charge of our lives. And I do want to say one other thing about the world. The idea of this darkness, yes, but there's a big but. There's a lot of light on this planet. And the ego is not real. This is trippy. The ego is not real according to divine. It has been created by disconnection from our own light and our own divinity inside ourselves. When we disconnect, when we don't know we're divine, we just don't know it. We could call that unconscious, whatever you want to call it. We take actions that are of that, not divine. not nice, right? That energy builds up, and I'm frequently shown like a balloon blowing up, right? And more of that energy that is coming from someone not knowing they're divine or that they're light and feeding into this balloon, it blows up. If you pop the balloon, there was nothing in it. There's really nothing in it. And so, what's real? Is ego that kind of ego? Is that ego real? Or is the light real? The light is real. Now, the ego tricks us. It's a trickster. And Eckhart Tolle goes very deeply into this. And the records refer to Eckhart a lot as an ascended master. He talks about, and he giggles, he calls it a monster, the when he does that little giggle, that it fears its own demise, and the records affirm that. So the ego itself, darkness is part of that. It's our perception of it. It fears its own demise. So it has to create, once it's an essence, it attracts more, it wants to attract more of it by the law of attraction as an essence, so that it will continue to become more relevant. That's what's going on. And I think that on the planet, and that's what Eckhart refers to as collective ego feeding into. I've been shown a gray band, and I think, Stefan, you were getting close to that when you were describing this thing. I've been seeing it's like a gray pulsing band around the planet. It's gray, and it's completely like a circle around the surface of the planet above it. And every time acts of love or love in action, or someone coming into knowing they are love, every single time that happens, it shoots light into it and pokes holes through it. That's what I see, this image, all the time. That hasn't changed. And so that's why we have to be, the record said it's a 911 call right now for us to be warriors of light. It's the time to sit on a mountaintop and meditate. I think we're past that. Like that works. It's not bad to do that. But we need to grab our golden swords and we have to slash through, right? We have to slash through this stuff with light. And so what does that mean? It doesn't mean fight it. We can't fight what's there. It's not real. It's going to go away. Yes, people are going to leave. They are leaving. We could say people are suffering, but they don't have to.
Well, I'm very inspired by Eckhart. As a matter of fact, we lived in LA for like 2 years. And during the time that we lived there, and your dear friend Dia invited us to a beautiful presentation that was put together by these Hollywood producers, directors. I can't remember the name of the organization now. There was one guy that headed it, but they had an evening with Eckhart Tolle.
Oh, nice.
And yeah, it was really beautiful. And at that point, I was such a, I don't want to say a disciple, but I had read The Power of Now. Actually, it didn't make as much of an impression as A New Earth made. And I had read A New Earth just before I had gone to see him. And this is the thing that I had noticed. After the show was over, Eckhart came off the stage and was surrounded by half a dozen muckety mucks, we'll call them, of the Hollywood elite. And of course, he's not tall in stature. All these people rose above him. But I noticed this aura that kind of was moving out from him.
Wow.
This sense that I got, this feeling that was much more empowering than even reading his inspiring words. I could just feel that whatever he is as a human being, there was something spiritually driving him that was energetic. And so let's move into the energy conversation of because we're talking about quantum fields. We talk about these energetic fields that are taking, and the Akashic Records are really an energy field. But now I have this one question that started when you were talking about love. I'm going to bring it up now. In the message, in one message, the record said, humans have become separated from their love centers. Um, I'm curious, what practices help us find our way back to that center?
Well, there are many. One is nature. And the idea that when we are, and we don't have to run, we don't have to go find some wood somewhere. It's all over. Nature's everywhere, the ground under us. But when we experience something in nature, it could be just looking at a leaf or a bird, stopping for that bird, right? When we do have those experiences in nature, those moments of, I like to call them awe. I mean, we do, it makes us stop, right? That's the power of nature. And it's infused. It is divine. That is a representation of divine. We wouldn't be able to, this is like math, we wouldn't be able to experience that if we were not of that. So when we experience anything in nature, however we do, and it could be through an animal, that is divinity itself showing us who we are. People don't realize that. They think they're just experiencing it. It's like, no. And the math part is A. You remember this in school? A plus B equals C, therefore A equals C. It's kind of like that, right? So that's one way that we experience that. That's it. That is us. It's showing us us. The other way, music. When we hear a piece of music and we lose time, and we just all of a sudden we're in awe. It doesn't matter what it is. Everyone has their different music that brings them somewhere, or they just all of a sudden they're like, and there's this little pocket of something where he's laughing. It's been my experience since I was little with music. Like, whoa, it's like a hole or something. Whoa, right there. That's showing us us. We couldn't experience that if we were not of that whoa, right? So that's another. And of course, the one we all know about is when we do encounter love. When we do encounter love among humans, I mean, when we see people, I'll give you an example. I have to use this as an example, but when I see videos of regular people on the street being courageous enough to take their phone out and video when ICE is beating the crap out of someone, I get tears. What made that person take out their phone? They could have just gone, whoop, not me, let me get out of here. No, people are stopping, and that's love in action. And they're just saying, and they're yelling at the ICE people, going, "What are you doing? Stop it! Why are you hurting her?" They're standing up for that person. And sometimes the people who have been courageous enough to do that with their phones, they get knocked down or whatever. And so I see that, and people are seeing that, and they're not seeing it on mainstream media, unfortunately. But when they do see that, you have to. How can you not go, oh my, like feel something? That's divinity.
Well, you talked about music. You saw me laughing.
Yeah.
Just within this last week, I saw something online. It was Bob Dylan was asked what the greatest song of all time was, and he said, "The Wichita Lineman" by Jimmy Webb. And people were like, "What?
Oh,
The
I think I
Wichita
saw
Lineman by
that.
Jimmy Webb?" And then Billy Joel was in an interview with Bill Maher on Bill Maher's podcast,
Yeah.
and Bill Maher brought up on a list of great songs, "The Wichita Lineman," and Billy Joel said, "I wish I could have written a song as great as the Wichita Lineman." And Bill Maher said, "Come on, Billy, all these songs you've written there." He said, "No, I've never written a song as great as Jim Webb's Wichita Lineman." Now, if you go into the history of how he wrote this, what the story is, people should find it on YouTube. It's really amazing. However, I went and I loved the song. I loved Glenn Campbell's,
Yeah.
all of his songs. Okay. So I went back and I listened to Wichita Lineman. And when it got to the line, "I need you more than want you, I want you for all time," I started to cry. And I don't want people to think I'm sentimental here, but it was like an arrow piercing into my heart. Even when I say it now, it brings tears to my eyes. The sound,
I
it's
had the
just so
same.
impactful.
I can't believe you're saying this. I was walking my dog in the park and I was listening to, I think it was Coast to Coast. And whoever was on, they went to a commercial. that song came on. I have chills right now. I was listening to it, and when it came, I know specifically where I was in the park. I heard that line. I stopped and I went, whoa, whoa. I missed that line all these years. That is so powerful. I had the same
Uh,
experience.
but it's so simple, and
Yes,
yet the sound of it and the music that's written underneath of it when it's sung.
yes,
And my son is a wonderful musician. He went to music school, and I've constantly tried to ask him, about this thing with the sound of music, the sympathetic tonality of it, the chordings, and how it affects the heart, the sympathetic heart pulsations. There's
yes.
got to be something going on there. I would love somebody to explain it to me, because it's happened to me a number of times, where in a number of songs, where the sound of the music just brings tears to my eyes. And I could be, you say here about laughter.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
uh, you describe laughter as a portal between dimensions, a way the divine fine tunes us. Has humor become a part of your spiritual practice? Well, humor is a part of my spiritual practice, because nothing makes me feel better other than I need you more than want you. I want you for all time, than laughing. I
Me
mean, if
too.
I start to crack up and my wife says I sound like Deputy Dog because I can't get the laugh out to be boisterous, it's
Yeah, right.
and it is the most fantastic feeling. Yeah. So, can you talk about that?
Well, the thing is too, the records are coming through me and they're using my imagination, they're using my way, my personality. And my personality is I got it. When they said that, I got it because laughter, you can't think. Think of the moment of laughter. Because I think they said it like opens a portal or something. Like when if it's that kind of laughter, we're like boom, like it's just the, I mean, I had it with I Love Lucy. I still watch I Love Lucy. It's a brilliant show. One of the most brilliantly written shows ever. And I still will be like, start howling in a moment. And I know what's going to happen. I can pretty much speak the entire episode. It doesn't matter. There's something about that mix of creativity in, and where you just, it just gets you. And so you can't be thinking about anything. You can't be egotistical about anything. Like you can't do anything. And so and think of how good it feels. And then everybody collectively joins in it when you're in a group. So it's not surprising that they said that because that's where like it's so feel good in a moment that it can only be an expression of divine itself. Because divine is about all that it's good. It's all good. There's nothing bad in divine or
Do you,
judgmental or anything. It's
do you
raw.
ever crack up? Do you ever crack up in the middle of a reading that something comes to you? I mean, maybe not, because
Well,
you
not
want to be
no, not
serious.
some. Well, no, I don't crack up, but I have laughed, and actually this is very interesting. There was a reading I was doing, and the woman she was in a rough place. I'll just say that, and she wanted the reading, but I think she was skeptical, probably of herself, is what was really going on. And so I felt her like just disconnected. But I don't have judgment, so I just keep flowing the information. And at some point, out of nowhere, I saw an image of a toilet bowl. I'm kidding. And so I probably laughed a little and I went, this is going to sound, I have to say, I wasn't going to convey it at first, but then I can't interrupt these readings. So it was like I kept hearing, you have to tell her. So I said, this is going to sound a little odd, but they're showing me right now a toilet bowl. And she goes, oh, well, and she was really not very warm. She goes, well, that's interesting because I just got a new toilet bowl and it was delivered yesterday. So I was like, oh my God. And I did laugh at that. And I laugh when there's synchronicity, which is similar to when we're talking about when laughter happens, something synchronous is happening, right? In our bodies with what's coming in, something outside is meeting up with something inside, and we can't help it, kind of thing. And so when synchronicities like that happen in the records, I do laugh. because it just cracks me up. I'll hear things and say things, and they'll go, "Well, it's really interesting that you just said that because whatever," and then I just sort of laugh. So
Okay, so
anyway.
you would talk about synchronicity. This is pretty good. Our last guest was also a reader of the Akashic Records,
Oh, cool.
and she was also a contestant on Naked and Afraid, um, and
Mm-hmm.
she won the episode. She was
Nice.
she outlasted her male uh, component. So when Dia said she had someone to bring for our podcast, and she mentioned you and the Akashic record, that was going to be the next thing after our last thing on the Akashic record. So the Akashic record is now foremost in our psyche. And I'm going to mention your book again before we leave. It's The Akashic Way, Living Through the Lens of the Akashic Records. It's available on Amazon now,
Yes. Mm-hmm.
and all your favorite bookstores and downloads. I mean, I'm sure there's one bookstore somewhere, East West, maybe in digital form or whatever. So again, everybody go out and get it. Mary Madeiras, The Akashic Way, Living Through the Lens of the Akashic Records. So
I love what you two do. I just want to see more and more of you. And Gary, I want to hear from you.
Well, you will because this is like a living experience of what you were alluding to earlier. Because at some point, and I think it was early in the game here when you mentioned, East West books. I felt that click with you. I mean, it wasn't because of the East West books, but that just happened to be at the moment that the click occurred. And then there was like I saying like, oh well, I'm about to embark on a new phase of my journey because it'll be with you, you know?
I
So,
love that.
so I mean, I don't know if you got that or not, but I certainly did. So that'll be another another adventure from it because yeah, I'll certainly be in touch with you and definitely want to get a reading from you and also see
Absolutely.
see
Yeah.
where that goes because I feel there's a rich opportunity here to go into things maybe that I haven't touched on or have any experience with prior to this. So this is but the point is, there was definitely bingo. There was that
I
click.
know what you mean. I know what you mean. And thank you for sharing that. And I got that when I was for you, Gary, when I was listening to your story, when Stefan, you were interviewing Gary. It reminded me too of Andrew Harvey, who I love. And that one book of his, which is about how he was following Mother Mira, was it, the guru?
I read that book. It was and that's when I really kind of connected with Andrew Harvey through the Mother Mirror book. Yes.
Yep,
So
yep. And he was following her for 13 years, and
yeah,
then and he refers to it as the dark night of his soul.
right.
And he fell in love with a man, and she was like, "Oh no, that can't happen." No. And he chose love. That's how I always say it. I tell his story all the time. He chose
I was
love.
so impressed. I was so impressed with that because because Steph and I went through this whole thing of when you're a disciple of the guru, you surrender to the guru, and the gurus. And so here Andrew Harvey chose the love over the guru, which I was like, yeah, yeah,
And hit rock bottom because Gary, you shared about being depressed.
right.
His that dark night of the soul was really tough for him. That's it. That's in that book. He's written like 41 books now, and I love that he refers to what we all should be is he calls it rat. Oh, he coined a few phrases. Oh, sacred activism. I mean, the word sacred used to be over here by itself, and activism would be over here. Sacred activism, that's that golden sword of Michael. When we grab our golden swords well, we have to get in balance before we do it. And, pick up our phones and when we see something bad happening, call it out.
So you just brought something up that I'd like to bring out. I think at this point, the Supreme Court just refused to take a case uh, uh, on same-sex marriage, so that's safe.
Yes.
And you know, I don't think people understand that love between human beings is love between human beings, in spite of the natural order of what they want to call things.
That's right.
That you fall in love with who you're attracted to.
Yes.
There's an inner attraction that attracts you to someone else. And it is part of the natural order. Going back into, thousands of years, it was not uncommon for same sex, not marriages, but unions of people back in the
Yeah.
time.
Look at the
So,
paintings.
yes, exactly. So let's talk about that for a moment. I know it's a sensitive topic, but does the Akashic record say anything about same-sex love with each other, or just love amongst each other, no matter what? I mean, I don't know how to put it uh,
Um,
um, delicately.
well,
So,
no, I mean, not as a topic I haven't brought up, but I think because I'm married to my wife. I have a wife, so I've been married and I've been with her for we've been together 31 years, and I think I have an Akashic reading, one of hers in the book, and she actually asks the records why it. This is so cute. She asks her own records, why didn't you why didn't you bring Mary as a man to me so that it would have been easier for me or something. So and I think they were basically saying like it because it doesn't matter. Basically it doesn't matter. Oh, and one other thing. We were when we would go to Abraham workshops, who would always get picked? My wife's name is Christine. I'd be next to her, like really having a question, raising my hand. She is on all the recordings. She gets picked all the time. And she asked in one of the shows, she was in what Esther Hicks refers to as the hot seat. So she was asking, I don't understand, like, why did I choose this kind of relationship or whatever? And so Abraham said, let's chew on this, as they say. And basically, what Christine said was, they said, well, what was it that you were wishing for in a relationship? And she said, well, I wrote the qualities of this, of that, to someone that would be this, that, that, a whole bunch of things that she wanted her relationship, the one relationship for her to be. And Abraham said, yeah, but you didn't mention whether you wanted a man or a woman. So the universe did bring you exactly what you asked for. And so that is right. It's Stefan, what you said. It is love as love. And when it's in its purest form, I used to say to people, I happen to fall in love with someone who's a woman early on when I wasn't fully out, I'll say, because it was like in the well, we met in the 90s, but people didn't talk about that. No one admitted it. Um, and and it doesn't matter. Like I've been with men. I know this is personal, but I've been with men in relationships. I've been with women. Christine was with men. I was the first woman she was with, and none of it really mattered. When I loved somebody, I just loved who they were first. So
well, that's it. I mean, love is above everything else.
yes,
It's above DNA.
it is
It's
absolutely.
above genes. It's above
Mhm.
everything that we think is important. The only important thing that exists on this planet is love.
That's a
So
great way to conclude our conversations. And that is what is going to bring us into the fullest alignment is that love.
wonderful. Mary, thank you so much for coming
You
on our
too.
show.
You
And
guys are
again,
great.
for everybody, Mary Madeiras' book, The Akashic Way, Living Through the Lens of the Akashic Records. And we must do this again. I'd like to have a session about your alien abduction. Spend an hour talking about that.
Yeah, we can do that. I'm more than happy to. I wrote about them in the book. there's a chapter on, I felt like I wanted to write about those experiences and have them written while in my record. So I did. And so they're in there.
Awesome. So let's keep the lines of communication open.
I would
And
love that. I would love
thank
that.
you
Let
so
me
much
know.
for visiting.
And if there's anything I can help you guys with, please let me know. Okay?
Awesome. Have a wonderful day.
You
Mary,
too.
we'll be in touch.
Love that.
What if the Akashic Records aren't somewhere out there, but alive in us, recording every heartbeat, every choice, every return to love? Mary Madeiras reminds us that we are not seeking the divine, we are the divine, remembering itself through us. If her words have stirred something in you, explore her book, The Akashic Way. It's more than pages. It's a field of remembrance waiting to meet you where you are. And as always, thank you for walking the Seeker's Path with us. Until next time, keep listening for what moves you. That's where the light begins to speak.